trying to create what we think is good for us, and maybe even what we think is good for them, without clearly reading the signs we get for them. We've also learned from the crisis, and when you talk to financial institutions today, that if you want to profit from the ups and downs that we're going to have in the future, it is essential that you can order vessels when the markets are good, and that is often, unfortunately, when the economy is a little bit depressed and it's hard to get financing. And you have to be also, of course, ready with the capacity when the going gets a little bit better. It's also very important that you're able to get through the crisis in a good manner without being forced to jeopardize customers or networks or employees. And therefore, our key learning was that a very, very strong balance sheet and good financial situation is essential. And we have, since the breakout of the crisis, worked very, very cautiously on reducing our balance sheet, on cutting our debts level, and making sure that our cash flow is strong enough to withstand any crisis, even if it is longer than what we've seen so far. Another area that we're putting a lot of emphasis on is cost focus. Cost focus is necessary because if you're not cost competitive, it doesn't help to have a strong balance sheet. But also by reducing cost and making sure that you're a cost leader, you can offer much more interesting and exciting propositions to your customers, better network, better transfer times, and better services in general. And the last point I would like to speak about is innovation. We have, I believe, always in terms of what the vessels can do, how it can be done, there's been a great amount of innovation in our industry. One of the new trends is that we have to turn our eyes also on sustainability, because sustainability is going to be ever more important for the industry. Hereby, we can increase the value we give to society, reduce the damages, and create a platform for discussing and for informing about the fact that shipping is very, very green. And actually, the environment in Asia could probably benefit from a lot more ship transportation, a lot more also intra-country, smaller ports and feeder operations, because there's actually, if you consume with shipping by ship instead of air, you consume 70% less, and of course it is also much more efficient to ship by sea than by both train and even more so by truck. So we have taken a lot of emphasis, or put a lot of emphasis on working ahead of regulation in the environmental area. We're focused on offering to our customers a lot, very, very good statistics on CO2 footprints. We're focused on offering CO2 effective transportation, working with our processes, allowing for slow steaming, and working with engines, coatings, and the way we navigate the sea, taking into account weather and current and so on, to cut fuel consumption. And the customers, I must say, are really appreciating this, even if it is CO2 emissions and it's not always very directly to measure. But we've also, on a much more concrete level, taken a number of initiatives to reduce coastal pollution. We pioneered the idea of low sulfur fuel in ports and coastal areas with the state of Los Angeles, or city of Los Angeles, back in 2006, and we've since then been involved in expanding that to other parts of the world. And I must say I'm very proud that our company yesterday also signed up to the Green Act here in Singapore, and I think it is very natural that the shipping companies here place great emphasis on not emitting a lot of black smoke when we are anchored in a big city. We've also created a unit out here that we call Maersk Maritime Technology here and in Denmark, and the purpose of this is really only improving technology of ships. And then we have, of course, and I think you've all read about that, ordered, after a long period of close technical cooperation with the shipyards, we have ordered a new series of 18,000 TEU ships that will cut the emissions compared to the average vessel trading Asia-Europe with 50% when they sail out in 2013. Very exciting, and I think also a sign of what can actually be achieved when shipping and shipyards really work together, determined of creating a better world. And I would actually encourage and invite everybody that are here today to take environmental issues into their considerations going forward. It will do two things for you. First of all, it will help your image, and it is your duty as a corporate citizen. And secondly, it will also, with increasing oil prices, help your business in the long term. And I think here, working on this together, on this pledge we gave yesterday to the state of the country of Singapore, I think it is a good place to start. And I think it's great to have the opportunity to have this discussion here in Singapore, where there's so many good ideas, there's so much focus on progress, and I hope we can also progress on that. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson, for your comments. And I will open it up to questions from the floor, but maybe while you're thinking of your first question, if I could pose one to you, which is you gave us some interesting insights into the world economy, trade and demand, and the tipping balance towards Asia. Often in shipping, we find that our best forecasts are thrown off by what happens on the supply side and the ships that come into the market. And talking of the container market specifically, we often hear references to increasing market share as a justification for ordering new ships. If everyone chases increased market share, is there not then a risk by definition of overcapacity? And how do you think about this in the container or the bulk shipping space?
I think this is really the crucial question in our industry, no question about that, because we are seeing this great, exciting world ahead of us where we should be seeing plenty of growth, but at the same time, as you say, we are all very keen on expanding market share. I'm not normally proud of saying this, but I will proudly say we actually lost market share last year. Not on purpose, but because the market grew faster than we expected, and because we also were a little bit restricting on our shipping orders during 2007 and 8. Because we didn't feel that our business was sufficiently competitive. We placed orders for large ships, but I think it's very important also here to underline that they basically only per year will contribute 8% additional capacity, which is more or less what we expect in the global growth rate in container shipping. So we're not doing this aiming at taking market share. On the other hand, I do think specifically for the container business that we will, due to the larger ships, due to the more sophisticated demands placed by our customers, we will most likely see some consolidation. And as it's quite expensive and complicated to take over competitors in the container shipping, could imagine that it would be that some of the smaller players would be a little bit more restrictive in going out and ordering these large vessels. If you have a 2 or 3% market share, it is a big bet to take and order 10 large vessels, which you need for a string, and trying to compete with the big players in the Asia-Europe trade. But I don't say that that should leave space for everybody, but not necessarily in the same trades. But I think you're absolutely right. We have seen far too much tonnage ordered, and we have managed to destroy years that could be very good by simply buying too much.
Thank you. Could I ask if there are any questions from the floor? Yes, on the right here.
Khalid Hashim, Pressure Shipping. The reports that we read indicate to us that shipyard capacity is such that you could have a replacement of all the existing ships within 7 years. But the existing ships, or the new ships that will come in, have a lifespan of anywhere between 25 and 30 years. So is shipyard capacity going to be a real issue in the future?
I think this is one of the really burning questions that everybody in the shipping industry should have at the moment, because it is very tempting if you as a country wish to build up your yard capacity or create plenty of jobs. to actually subsidize the shipyard industry for a while, making very good offers or seemingly very good offers to the shipping industry. So we again create that overcapacity. There's no question that there's far too much shipbuilding capacity in the world, and I hope that some of it will be reduced in a sensible way instead of being fully blocked by building ships, because the world cannot really use that kind of ships. It's far too many.
Thank you.
Thank you for your very interesting lecture. I'm from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I used to work in the Maritime Port Authority. My question relates to Maersk's dual role as a shipping line as well as a terminal operator. I think Mr. Powell indicated that you have a 15% market share in the container business. You're also the fourth largest terminal operator. I wanted to sort of understand how the aspect of making a decision on which terminal you would invest in, how does it affect your shipping business? Do you see it as a competitive advantage against other shipping lines who may not have the capacity to own terminals or the volumes to operate terminals? How do you strategically think about this issue of operating a terminal? Thank you.
I think that is an interesting observation, because needless to say, we have a number of fights between the shipping line and the terminal company, at least when they have to decide on pricing. But even if Maersk Line is the largest customer, actually the share of non-Maersk Line business at APM Terminals is growing very, very fast, and that is a deliberate intention, because we really want to separate them out, so that we are not linking Maersk Line's line net or route network with the decision of APM Terminals to build terminals. And it actually works very well. So when you see where we're building up terminals today, it is in Africa, it's in Latin America, it's in Asia. These terminals are all multi-user terminals, and everybody have the same rights to use them. And we're seeing a rapid increase in the third-party business, which is really very, very positive. We like both businesses. We believe that there's a lot of potential in being the largest container line in the world. When you start working with customer propositions, we believe actually that we can get even more mileage out of being large in improving systems. And also the whole APM Terminals business is very interesting, because infrastructure investments, as I was into before, in developing markets should have very good potential. But we don't regard it as a competitive advantage for either business anymore that we have both. So it is strictly arm's length business, and occasionally Maersk Line will not use a APM Terminals facility even if it's empty. So this is the way we see it, and it has created some challenges, but I think we're learning how to operate it. And I must say we have had advantage in having APM Terminals, because we could invest in bigger cranes ahead of the bigger vessels. But today, with all the four large players are very sophisticated, high quality suppliers, and we're equally happy to work with PSA or other people when it comes to innovation on the liner side. If I may add just one question or one thing to the last question, which was about shipyards. I actually think it is possible to change the purpose of the shipyards. Instead of just closing and laying people off, we've gone out of 3 shipyards in Europe in the last couple of years. The last one will be this year. And we've actually reorganized the work and the activities there, so we made it open for people who are active in the wind energy sector. And that could easily be done in China and Korea, that you use these very big facilities and heavy metal working facilities to get active in alternative energies, just as an example. So I think we need a little bit of creativity in industrial development here. Sorry for.
Richard Kendall from China Navigation. Mr. Anderson, you made reference in your talk to the importance of environmental considerations for our industry. And I just wanted to ascertain your views on the end game for market-based instruments for carbon emissions in our industry. And do you think we have a good chance of being able to come up with a multilateral rather than a regionally based unilateral solution to that issue?
This is an area that we have tried to push through IMO. We've had a lot of conversations both in the US and in Europe, as well as in Asia, trying to advocate that IMO should find solutions to this. We've been given a time limit, which is end of this year, and I think if IMO does not come up with solutions, the risk is that we will end up with regional quota agreements or regional solutions like we see in the airline industry, which I personally consider very unfortunate because it opens up a lot of room for special solutions and suboptimal behavior. So I hope we'll be able to find a solution, but it's much easier for sulfur emissions because that is coastal, that is within a given country's regulation. CO2 is much more abstract, and I think it's worrying. I hope that IMO and the shipping associations around the world will give it a last shot. Otherwise, I'm quite convinced that there will be regional legislation on it. Whether it's carbon trade or taxes or just quotas, I think will have to remain to be seen. Personally, I must say, with a bunker price approaching $700 a ton, it's quite hard to envisage that a quota would make or that the taxes would make much difference. But of course, if prices start falling again, maybe an incentive is needed to cut CO2 emissions. But a global solution is a huge challenge. So.
Much, Mr. Anderson. Joe Espinosa from IMO, and I won't attempt to answer that question. But Mr. Anderson, I was quite interested in towards the end of your speech, you talked about the importance of sustainability and of transmitting to the general public, perhaps, the value of shipping to society. And in your particular case, that you are going for environmental performance beyond compliance. This strikes me as being sort of like an image of an industry which is innovative, which is responsible, which has a very firm conviction of its value to society. How can the industry then transmit that image effectively to the general public, engage with the general public to make certain that the general public actually understands that that is the value of shipping and its goals?
I must say that I think there's a big difference in different parts of the world how much emphasis is placed on this, and therefore, since Denmark is one of the places where you have a huge emphasis on it and everybody are interested in environment, in a way maybe we have had an advantage in opening up the discussion on that. I don't think it's equally easy if you are in economies where the focus is on growth and getting out of poverty and so on. So it wouldn't take all the roses you're giving out. It's not just that, but we had a very good advantageous position. But we have talked a lot about it, and we've tried to communicate with the press what we're doing. We have also tried to take a very upright position on the way we deal with climate. We have not said that we're going to go out and do a lot of things that are bad for business, because if we go out and try to lead the environmental performance so far that we're not competitive, we're back to square one. Other people will sail and pay less attention and make the money. So what we have to do has always to go hand in hand with the economical consideration. But we've taken certain decisions, like, for instance, prolonging the life or taking the calculation on an investment, for instance, in heat regeneration, waste heat recovery use in engines, and we've spread it over the entire lifespan of the vessel instead of taking the usual